The agenda this week heard how parents and school boards have a long way to go in dealing with racism and equitable treatment of students. We reflected on a deeply personal experience with Canada's new assisted dying laws and celebrated Canadian cinema with a new generation of creators. The agenda's Week in Review now begins by reflecting on 35 years of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Back in the day, we're going back 35 years now, a number of the premiers didn't like the idea of a charter because they didn't like the idea of giving up rights to judges who were appointed essentially for life, retirement at 75, but they felt the loss of their power and a transfer of power to judiciaries, and they were very uncomfortable with that. What does the record over the last 35 tell us about whether or not they ought to have been concerned about that?
I think Peter Russell, at the dawn of the Charter, warned about the legalization of politics, the judicialization of politics, where we would take reasonable disagreements that we would expect Parliament to work out, sometimes messy compromises, would now be transferred to a judiciary that would solve them once and for all. And we've seen, as we discussed earlier with the assisted suicide case, it doesn't resolve them once and for all. They come back again because they often reflect these deeply held and contested values.
Well, let me go back at you.
Okay.
I mean, abortion kind of got solved once and for all as a result of the court saying the abortion law in this country is illegal.
It did not declare a substantive right to abortion. It actually had procedural requirements that Parliament could have responded with.
But they chose not to.
They chose
In
not
other words,
to.
the Parliament...
I don't know if they chose not to.
Parliament
They
took the ball and ran with it.
They failed to pass law.
The law failed on a tie vote in the Senate and was never brought back.
Could you put same-sex marriage in that same category, whereby the courts made a decision and legislatures were all too happy to wipe their hands of the politics with it and said, sorry, we can't do anything about it, the Charter has spoken?
Yes, I think you could. A lot was done by the courts, but you know, the last thing that happened was enacted by Parliament, and that was the Same-Sex Marriage Act, which clearly changed, the Parliament changed the definition of marriage so that no longer required people of different sexes. So there was something of both there, but up until the Parliamentary Act, the courts had struck down a lot of discrimination against same-sex unions, and so that was just the culmination of. But it was
the Supreme Court itself never said that the opposite sex definition of marriage was unconstitutional. That was left open in the reference case, and then Parliament finished the dialogue.
Yes.
Well, I guess the example I'm thinking of came about 20 years ago when Mike Harris was in power in Ontario, and the courts came down with a decision about same-sex benefits, I think it was, and he said, okay, we're in line. Now, you know his social conservative base wasn't happy with that, but he basically said that judges have spoken, the Charter has spoken, let's move along. And they redrafted, I think, 67 laws in order to comply with this new decision. I mean, that's a day that might not have happened without the Charter in place, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think this plays out in a lot of ways. Part of it is that, the judges speak, it is now cast in stone and thus will be forevermore, perhaps. Other times, I think, as Peter's highlighting with that reminder about how the same-sex debate did end with legislation, it's more that it's a bit of a back and forth or an exchange or a conversation between legislatures and Parliament and the judiciary. The judiciary had been pointing the way with a whole host of earlier rulings that made it very clear what the rights framework around this issue had to be, and then Parliament finishes it off.
But I'm not sure allowing that kind of issue avoidance is healthy for our democracy. For us to allow politicians to punt to the court just seems to me to lower the expectations for them in dealing with rights. I want them to deal with rights seriously, and by saying, well, actually, you can go over to the other side and get a definitive ruling there. If we lower our expectations for politicians, I'm not sure we should be surprised that they would stoop to them.
We should never let the Charter somehow let our lawmakers off the hook.
But that's happening. But clearly that's happening.
Yeah, but we shouldn't. I mean, we need to, that's what advocacy organizations do. We go back to those legislatures all the time to say, you shouldn't be waiting for the court ruling. You should get it right when you make the laws. That's when you need to think about rights compliance.
Well, and I do think this is an important point, that we certainly don't want the Charter to let parliamentarians off the hook. I think we can say 35 years on, though, that the Charter has had a very significant impact on how legislators legislate. And so the internal processes of government have changed quite significantly in response to the charter. So no piece of legislation hits cabinet for approval before being introduced in the House now without some fairly rigorous charter vetting having occurred.
In other words, is this going to pass a charter challenge? They ask themselves that now.
Yeah, and so I think there's absolutely instances where legislation is tweaked before it's ever introduced because of charter concerns. And I think the important point here is that we have to be sure that governments are diligent about that. We want parliamentarians to be concerned about this as well. We can't just leave this all to the courts. There is some evidence, though, that these internal processes are continuing to evolve in ways that show concern for the charter.
Tell us how the date, the 23rd of December, 2016, why don't you start? How did the day unfold?
It started the night before, and we were all sitting in his dining room right outside of his bedroom writing his obituary. And that was pretty surreal. We're all writing the obituary. And
Together?
Together. We were writing it, and then a nurse came that night to hook up 2 IVs because the procedure was going to be first thing in the morning the next day. And the doctor had explained to us that they have to do this because IVs fail or veins shut down. So can you imagine if the family's ready to go and that happens? So
it's a backup.
As a precaution, there's 2. So that's where it started. And then 5 o'clock in the morning the next day, our stepmother arrived. She did not live with him, but she arrived just to spend some time with him. We arrived around 7 a.m. with our 2 dogs. The whole family was there. And my first order of business was to read him the obituary. So that was quite funny because it was on my computer, and he was quite deaf. I didn't tell you that part too. So I had to get right up to his head, and I was instructed to read it slowly and loudly. So I did, and while all 4 of us had worked on it the night before, it was nerve-wracking to read someone his life story in just a few short words.
And he signed off on it, Melanie?
He signed off on it.
He did?
He did.
With one word, which was, "It's lovely."
But he did correct, he was 83,
Yeah.
and she had in his 83rd year, and he said, no, I'm in my 84th year.
Yeah, so he made a correction to his own obituary. Yeah.
Got to get it right. I know. Got to get it right. You played music
We did.
as it was happening.
We did.
Tell me about that.
Our mother had passed away about 20 years ago, and while she was dying, we kept her at home, and she died of a brain tumor too.
Weird.
Our father got up and put on It's a Wonderful Life by Louis Armstrong. Wonderful World by Louis Armstrong. And so we asked our father if he would like music, and he chose that song, but not that version. He wanted the Mormon Tabernacle Choir version.
Yep, in the 20 years, he decided he preferred the Mormon Tabernacle Choir version, which hilariously, it's a 5-minute version.
I was going to say,
which
it's
is
longer.
It's way better because we didn't know how long the procedure was actually going to take. So, and what was really beautiful, which I'd never really noticed before, was when the music started and the procedure started, it sounded like there were angels in the room because of the choir. It was really very beautiful, very profound.
Now, you talk about, quote unquote, the procedure.
Yeah.
What is the procedure?
Well, it's his was, I guess, technically euthanasia and done through IV.
So they administer
yes, so-
intravenously
yes.
something that will end his life?
Yes, they
3
have
medications.
3 medications. The first is midazolam, and that actually puts you to sleep. Then the second one is propofol, and that induces a coma. And they said that a lot of the patients pass during propofol. And then the third one, and I never get this right, it's something like rocnamonium.
Rocamonium.
And that basically stops the heart. And our father did pass during propofol.
the second
yeah.
drug.
And you were there.
Yes.
We were all there.
So the nurse and the 2 doctors were on one side of the bed. Our stepmother, my sister, and I were on the other side of the bed, holding
All holding on to a different
parts of his
part
body.
of his body. It was very funny.
Did they actually administer the 3rd drug?
Yes.
They
did.
did.
Yes.
Which
All 3.
I actually asked about that because he had passed during the second one and we could tell immediately. But they said they had to. It's just part of the procedure.
Okay, can we get into some uncomfortable questions now? Either 2 of you religious at all?
No.
Not
No.
particularly? Not
No.
particularly.
No.
But I'm guessing you belonged to a church at some point in your life, or you grew up in a church at some
We were
point?
good Anglican
You were
girls.
good Anglican
Yeah.
girls once upon a time. Did you get feedback from your church or from friends or extended family or something on the advisability of doing what you all did?
No, not necessarily, although when we were looking for witnesses, so 10 days before the procedure was actually done, he had to essentially sign a document that signed his life away. And we needed 2 witnesses for that who could not benefit from his death in any way. So,
So unrelated to him, in other words.
correct. So the first person we asked was over there in a shot. She was proud and pleased to be a part of this. The second 2 people said no.
Because?
One was a good Catholic, and I think she's like, no, 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 no. And the second one is actually a good Catholic also, but I don't. She just said, "I'll sign it, but I won't see your father."
Well, the first one also, she said if it was for me, she wouldn't have an issue, but she didn't know my father as well, and just
She
couldn't.
wasn't sure she
Yeah,
wanted to
and that was
participate.
fine. And that was fine.
Which,
So-
and then and we've said this. The beautiful thing about Canada is, it's absolutely their right to say no. We just moved on. We're like, that's fine. That's their right. Let's just find someone else who can do this.
We've used a false metric in this country. We've always sort of said, well, we can't compete with them, so why bother? And well, that's assuming we can't compete in their fight, right? But
What's the fight we should be competing in?
okay, so every Saturday across this country, there's bar fights happening. There's little men taking down big guys all the time, and that's because they fight their fight. And so we can't crash spaceships into the Hollywood sign like they can, but they can't be as harsh and have as much teeth and come at it with the chutzpah and balls and the handmade, clumsy sort of blue-collar language. Like there's all these sort of things that we can do that they can't because we don't answer to all those masters, right? So rather than trying to beat them at their own game, play our game and win that fight. And this is a movie that has so much soul, and I call it a handmade movie. It's handmade in that you feel the presence of people in it. You know, it's not a cookie cutter thing made just to sort of fulfill some obligation. This is a love letter, a bunch of people's love letters, and you don't really get to make a lot of those in the States when you have to answer to God knows how many investors.
Can I see your arm?
Yeah.
What does that say?
That says Ropel, R-O-P-E-L-L.
Who's that?
That is my mom's maiden name. That is the family that I come from, my mom's side. We've been in Nova Scotia for about 300 years, and mom was 6 of 8 kids, and that name will not last much longer. And so it was my sort of tribute to my granddad and to my mom. And
Your granddad, because he...
Robert Ropel was a hero. He was a very, very mild-mannered man, God-fearing man who also was a career gunner. He was an artilleryman in the Royal Canadian Armed Forces for 30, 40 years. Left Canada in '39 to fight the Germans. Made it back alive, and then as soon as he got home, re-enlisted to fight the Japanese. Was in the first UN peacekeeping mission in Cyprus. Responsible for cataloging a great deal of the artifacts of the Canadian War Museum. I'm very, very proud of the family I come from, especially my mom's side. And
The reason I asked you all this is because, and you tell me if I'm overreaching here, it seems to me you have a lot of reasons to feel very kindly towards Canada.
I do.
Not the least of which is where you're from,
Yeah.
who your people are,
That's it.
what the subject matter of your movie is,
Yeah.
the fact that it's so uniquely Canadian.
Thanks.
The Americans probably couldn't figure out how to make that kind of movie down there anyway.
I don't think so.
So I'm wondering if that's all part of the stew that leads
100
you to conclude that
100%. I you know, I don't mean to compare filmmaking to soldiering because one allows us the right to vote, one entertains us. So, but like this is my, you know, it's a lump in my throat that I never went to the Royal Military College in Kingston. It was never in cadets, never did any of that stuff.
Unlike everybody else in the family.
Most of my mom's family, yeah, I always felt like I didn't pull my weight in that respect. And so,
But you're putting us on the map in a different way.
so I'm trying to do.
Good. I want to ask you a bit of a, I know this is a hockey movie, but let's do a baseball metaphor here. Here's a bit of a high-tight fastball. You ready? You hear this all the time.
Yeah.
English Canadian movies punch below their weight.
Yeah.
Do you think that's true?
I think a lot of the times, yeah. I think a lot of the time it is, yeah. I think, and that's down to a few things. But the most important thing is that I think in English Canada for too long we have endeavored to make one kind of movie for one audience.
What's that kind of movie?
I'd say we've made movies for film students and film critics and
As opposed to?
Canadians. You know, that's kind of what I like to say is like we don't make Goon for Montreal and Toronto and Vancouver. We make Goon for Calgary and Halifax and Winnipeg and Hamilton and Barrie. You know, and I think that it can't be overstated the cultural repercussions of not being able to see yourself reflected in your own cinema.
Apparently, Michelle, English Canadian movies are not breaking through with audiences. They have this, I guess, reputation of being not very good. And I wonder whether you think that's deserved.
No, I don't think that's deserved. I think the things that you see that get wide distribution are often not the things that people necessarily are drawn to see in theaters. And there seems to be a disconnect between our distribution models and what's being financed versus what people and audiences want to see. You know, and film festivals have been our best friends. That's where many of us sitting on this panel have been able to cut our teeth and actually get our films noticed. But unfortunately, there is a great divide when it comes to distribution of some of the best films that have come out of Canada.
April, let me get you to follow up. English Canadian movies, in some circles, have a reputation for just being not that good, and that's why people don't go to see them. Accurate?
Canadian films are incredible at the moment. I think we're breaking waves, setting trends all over, the world. And in the film markets I've been to, the film festivals I've been to, we're innovative, we're raw, we're bold, and we just happen to not be seen in our own country. But the rest of the world is definitely recognizing us on a global front, an international front. It's just in our home turf, well, the percentages are true. And I think that's the problem, is the disconnect between Canadian cinemas and perhaps not being able to be showcased in a way that we should be.
Charles, how disappointing is that for you, that your films might get more attention overseas than they actually will in your home country?
It's the classic story of certain artists having to leave this country to find their footing, and Canada's, long before I've started making film, it's been the story of films and filmmakers and the work not really getting the respect here in their country. And I think that, as Michelle has mentioned, in April as well, it's just there is a large disconnect with how films are distributed, and it's wonderful to acquire some international partners and people who actually recognize your work. But we live here. We apply for funding. We try to we want to tell stories that are Indigenous, and there is a disconnect. It's if you find that distributors or within this country, if you're taking meetings and they're literally saying we're only going to possibly take 2 films, Canadian films, a year.
2 a year?
2. They'll literally tell you that. Huh. Well, that's kind of tricky. Well, then do you even care about the Canadian industry? Do you care about actually, really trying to take when Andrew exploded on the scene? It's like, there should be a mad rush to find out who and what he's thinking to do next, and getting behind and nurturing that filmmaker to actually, move forward and get to their second and third and take an interest. If they don't care, then the rest of the Canada isn't going to care.
What is that about, Andrew? Why would you have a situation where a guy says, I don't care how great the movie is, I'm taking 2 Canadian flicks this year, period, full stop?
Yeah, well, I think there are 2 things. One, there is some stigma around English Canadian cinema, and I think, it is in part because I think we have some amazing films. We have also made mediocre films, and I think that there's this double-edged sword where maybe sometimes we get behind and we celebrate mediocre films too, like because we're really trying to get the films out there, and so maybe that adds to the stigma. But I think there is this generation of filmmakers that's coming up right now that is making waves on the international scene and really making interesting work. And the question is, well, then why aren't people still? Why are we still not going to watch them? And I think that's a question with a number of answers. One of them is marketing related. The reality is that a Canadian film, however good it is never going to be marketed on the same scale because it is a matter of scale.
What is the marketing budget on your film?
The marketing budget on my film is bigger than the budget of the movie, and it's still very small. I think we had support of Telefilm and a distributor who were really behind the film. So you have a couple of $100,000 being spent across the entire country to try to market a film.
Which you're trying to compete with American big pictures.
With about
that
$100 million marketing budget.
Tough.
And that whole campaign gets thrust from that American release over to the Canadian release. And it's something that's happening internationally. It's not just here. The middle of that film industry is falling out as sort of the American system collapses into these tent poles where it's as important to spend the $100 million on marketing as it is to make the movie, because the marketing is what sells it.
Right. The Minister of Education, Mitzi Hunter, ordered an investigation into the whole board and its practices. And let's just, the report just came out and we want to share some of the findings that they had here. So let's, Mr. Director, bring these up if we can. The review was released to the public last week and it found that the terms of Director of Education J. Philip Pereple's contract were unusual for Ontario, including the 10-year term of his contract. As we know, that contract has been looked into and his association with the board may soon be coming to an end. Yes. Trustees weren't transparent when repeatedly traveling to other jurisdictions at the school board's expense. Trustees were found to have poor knowledge of good governance practices. Administrative staff were suffering from damaged relationships, low morale, and mistrust. The staff and community perceived a faltering commitment to equity. Did either of you attend the press conference when this was all made public?
Yes,
You were both there?
Yes.
And what was your impression, Garth, of how things went?
Well, it's surprising that the Board of Trustees did not know, or either they knew or didn't care that all of these things were going on. It's interesting that it took outside people to come in and tell them what was happening at their board. It's also interesting that the person that they just recently fired is the same person that they extended an unheard of 10-year contract to. So all of the things that have been taking place lay at the feet of the leader, which is the Director of Education. But who put the leader there? It's the Board of Trustees.
The board hired the director.
The board hired the director. When years ago, when the trustees' jobs became, all the duties were uploaded to the province and to the ministry, they no longer had to negotiate union contracts. They no longer had to deal with all the things of managing a school board. They had one job, as the report said, that is to hire a director of education, and their second job is to advocate on behalf of the taxpayers who voted them in. And they failed on both counts. They didn't hire a good director of education. That failed us. And when we tried to advocate because of the things that were going on, they failed to support us.
So Charlene, in a very real way, your efforts on behalf of your son have led to this significant report and presumably some changes that are going to result. Are you confident that things are actually going to change in the York District School Board, York Region District School Board, as a result of all of these efforts?
I have to say, since we met, myself and a few other parents from the board, from the region, met with Mitzi's team, Minister Mitzi's team, we've seen consistent move forward for better. And that was the first time I felt heard. I actually broke down that day, and that was the first time I actually cried about the situation in a while. But based on all the recommendations, we've always asked, we're willing to come to the table and help with the changes. And I am very hopeful, I've been hopeful that change is it's coming. And it's a marathon, you know. For us, it's a process. We live it every day, we go through it every day, but we're willing to stick with it just for the changes.
That's what I was going to ask you. Did you ever come to a point where you just thought, you know what, this is not going to work and we're going to take our kids out and go somewhere else?
Never. No. The reason why, when we sat our son down, I remember we had a dinner table and we said, I'm going to file a human rights claim. He didn't know what that meant. I had to explain it to him. I said, I know this is a big ask, but I'm going to ask you, you got to be on your best behavior because they're going to come at you. They're going to scrutinize everything that you do, but this is not for you. This is for your little brother. I have a 6-year-old. And he goes, Mom, it's okay. I want to stay here. Don't move me. And it stopped being about my son a long time ago. I was at work, and this lady walked up to me one day out of the blue and goes, can I hug you? And when she hugged me, she whispered in my ears, thank you for fighting for my son. And we both started crying. And, you know, since then, so many other people have come up to me and said that. And it's no longer for my son. He's almost out of high school. I would say he's in grade 10, going in grade 11. But there's so many other students that this is going to help.
And also, I got to say, Steve, you know, it probably seems as if right now the York Region District School Board has the perception that they are the racist board, as someone had said to me. But I think that there are a lot of great teachers, great administrators, great superintendents within the system. But we don't live in a perfect world. And when discrimination and racism rears its ugly head, you have to have strong, driven leaders that are going to navigate the organization through it. And that's what we've been fighting.
Do they have those there?
I think
strong, driven leaders.
I think there are strong, driven leaders. I think the director was not the captain that was needed at the head of this ship, and so you know we're very encouraged that he's no longer there. But you know, I didn't want this to be you know the entire board is this way, because there are good teachers there, there are good administrators there, there are good staff members there, but I think that whoever they replace as the director, whoever they get as the new director, has to be strong, has to be a leader, and has to have diversity and equity as part of their fabric to lead the change.
I think the question we need to ask is, you know, after Minister Hunter's sort of response, for example, you know, what happens next? And in that what happens next, what I'm getting at is, how do we, or what power can she use to really define, direct, and instruct how her directives and how the recommendations in the report are followed?
Let me follow. All right. In which case, let me follow up in our remaining moments here with something that you wrote about this past week, and which you seem quite hot to trot on, which is getting rid of trustees altogether because they've outlived their usefulness. Make the case.
Well, trustees are really, they're rebels without a cause. They have lost their taxation authority decades ago, thanks to Mike Harris. It's a part-time job. They're not involved in the primary negotiations with teachers anymore. That's done now centrally by the province. So the province raises the taxes, it writes the curriculum, it does the negotiations. What exactly are trustees doing except making mischief? One of the interesting
they're
takeaways.
supposed to be taking phone calls from constituents and representing their interests at the board.
So one of the interesting takeaways from this report, one of the most revealing to me, apart from the travel excesses, was that the reviewers thought fit to note that 4 of the trustees out of the 12, 1/3, 33%, were basically positioning themselves for future runs at higher elected office. They're always in a hurry. They're always just passing through, as we say in Canada. And so that affected their judgment. So the trade-offs, the horse trading, the positioning influenced how they comported themselves as trustees.
Because they're more focused on future career as opposed to the job at hand.
So this idea, this false logic that somehow this is a local level of government, they're closer to the community. The fact is, it's dysfunctional at that level. Look, I love democracy. I know it's imperfect in many ways. But when I see Donald Trump or Rob Ford elected, I don't have a problem with the way it was done. I may not like those two people as politicians, but at least everybody was engaged. People watched the debates. They knew what they were getting, or thought they knew what they were getting. People don't know who their trustees are. They don't turn out in significant numbers to vote for them. Sometimes it's as low as 10% turnouts. So it is a false correlation that these trustees are somehow delivering some value to their constituents.
I may be more of a reformist on this particular issue, but the point that you make, Martin, in your articles around the electoral process, or the fact that most people don't know the trustees, is, I think, absolutely true. What if because it's about education, what if we tweaked the process? So what if it was still democratic, i.e., you go, you make your vote, whatnot, but we did a different process of informing the community? What if that was the new way that it took place?
How's that look?
So what I mean is, very intentional, a new way of engaging the community about this vote that they're about to make, a new way of engaging them about the fact that a vote is about to take place. I mean, you sort of see these, placards show up on people's lawns. You kind of feel like it happens every couple of months, like for different reasons, for different levels of government, but people don't know what's going on. And so what if we approached the engagement differently so that people actually did know about, so it might happen in churches and mosques, and, maybe they went to the PTA meetings, like what, and I say the they being, what if this whole process was done maybe by the government? I'm
Requires
worried about
the citizen engagement that we don't yet have on this.
Right, but this is what I'm talking about. So what if there was a new engagement process? Why do we assume that the process, the democratic process, the approach of engagement is the only way, is the best way? I think because even in our regular voting, mayor, et cetera, you see that certain communities are engaged far less than others. So what if we problematize that and address that? Because, and I say that only to say that you have board, you have families, but what is the body that holds the administration accountable, right? So if we got rid of that, then we wouldn't necessarily have that role. So what can we do to reform that process?
In our last 20 seconds here, do you see any appetite by the province to follow up on this?
On the report
No,
itself?
on the abolishing trustees.
No, but I think that there will be pressure down the road. I think the secret sauce here is going to be years from now when we eventually amalgamate, because we will one day. Not yet, we're not ready for it now, but when we bring the separate school board in together with the public school board, then it'll be time to look at the role of trustees, because there is not just dysfunction at the democratic level, there's also a democracy fatigue that I think would kibosh any of your really idealistic hopes for trying to engage people on this.
They are, she acknowledges. And that is the Agenda's Week in Review for this Friday, April 21st, 2017. You can see all of those conversations in their entirety at tvo.org, on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/theagenda, and now, thanks to our nightly Twitter live stream, on our Periscope page. That's periscope.tv/theagenda.
Help TVO create a better world through the power of learning. Visit tvo.org and make a tax-deductible donation today.